this is Nagios plugin hasn't reinvented the wheel here. It uses get.long, so most of you will be familiar with it. It asks you for a help. Okay, so when the plugin is executed with -h, this will appear in the help, so that you're documenting the plugin as you go. You'll say if it's required, and if the user hasn't passed in the argument when you call get.ops, the plugin will die, saying, "Oh, I don't have a warning. It was required." Okay. And then, well, let's say I want to make a plugin about seeing if there's processes that are running with 3W's data. This is a default for my plugin. If the user doesn't specify the user argument, we'll just assume 3W's data. Okay, and then we can access in the arguments through the instance, okay, the instant ops and the long name. So basically now we have to do the work. That was until here we haven't worked really. Just said, "Oh, I want warning. I have this license." Just boilerplate. And now we have to go and see, well, how many users are online. Just do what the plugin has to do. And after that, you'll have a couple of numbers, suppose. You'll have to calculate the statement of the service. Are 100 processes okay? Are they warning? Are they critical? What's with that? We have to specify what are the values, or what's the state for different values. And we normally suppose that okay is less than warning and critical is over a value, but what if that isn't true? And because we want to be flexible, we don't want to hard code this logic into our plugin. You can see the logic coming. Oh, if the critical threshold is lower, then I have to calculate this way or that way. It's going to be a big mess. So, the Nagios plugins project already specified a format to express ranges for values. Most of the official Nagios plugins already supports this syntax. So the default is to, when you say that that warning is 10, you're saying generate an alert if the value is not between 0 and 10. We'll say from 10 onwards. That's the typical case we're accustomed to. But we can say that we can tell it to generate a warning when the value is not between 10 and infinity. Okay, so to support this syntax, all you have to do is accept the string in your warning argument, and then just pass it to the check threshold method. So the value that you've picked up, 100 processes, alert me from 200 over, and critical if 300 over. This will give you the exit code. It'll give you a note. Okay, everything's okay. So the only thing you have to do now is just exit. Called Nagios plugin exit with the code and an error all this is for free, so let's just move 2 lines of code. To output the status, it's that first line of output. You just have to call Nagios exit with one of the constants, critical, okay, warning, unknown, and the string that you want outputted. Nagios plugin will put the name of your plugin before, it will put the state, and then the message. And then performance data. Wow, look, I read something. I read a value. Why not output it? So now that you're at it, you only have to add one line telling Nagios to be conscious that we have some type of formatted data. We read the value. The name of the thing is the size of something I read. Its unit of measure, UOM, is in kilobytes, and we can pass the warning and the critical thresholds we read from the user. Because in the performance data specification, you output the value you read, the warning threshold, and the critical threshold. So then the user tools can say, oh, your thresholds were this and that on that time, when I read this. So we have a couple of UOMs. If you don't specify anything, we assume that it's a number. But if you specify seconds, milliseconds, nanoseconds, you can specify percent, bytes, kilobytes, megabytes, terabytes, and a C as a continuous counter, one that only goes up. So that's basically it. Okay, now you've completed your plugin. And that's all that Nagios plugin has for you. There are a couple more of options to output multi-line and various warning or critical messages. There is an experimental API, but I won't mention it because it's experimental, but it's documented on the Nagios plugin page. So if we're Perl programmers and we'll be using modules on CPAN to monitor the things we want to look at. So we'll probably use the DBI for connecting to a MySQL, getting some data back, and eventually strange things will happen to us. Okay. This is a problem I started to have, that plugins, when you use CPAN modules, plugins will start to return things like this. Okay? Basically, this is because we haven't, a module has died, has raised an exception, we haven't caught it, and what happened? The output went to stdr, and Nagios doesn't care about it, it just discards it. And the exit code is following Perl's rules for die. So it'll output whatever value it had, 111 for this plugin. And Nagios will just consider it critical and go on. If you just use Nagios plugin nicely at the top of your plugin, any exception will be catched, and it will adapt it will show you, it will output the exception via std out, So Nagios will be able to see it, and it will choose the status that you told it to. If you just use Nagios plugin nicely, it defaults to critical, because normally an uncaught exception is quite preoccupying. But you can tell it, just specifying here a string, you can tell it to just work, or to be unknown if it catches something. Of course, you can catch the exception and with your own output. It's conscious that it will only intercept uncatched exceptions. Okay? So that's for Nagios plugin nicely. It's that simple. It's just a little bit of help for not having to do for wrapping all your plugins in a big eval and just making your life a bit nicer. Okay, so next thing we have Nagios plugin 3Ws Mechanize. And basically, this is a plugin that takes Nagios plugin and 3Ws Mechanize, puts them together, and ships it. Okay, you were going to do it anyway, because you were going to visit your web page, you were going to use LWP or 3Ws Mechanize. So Tom Boone from the Nagios plugins project decided why not just put something together, and again, you just create an instance and you use it as a Nagios plugin object. This is it's a superclass of Nagios plugin, so you can just use the methods as if it was a Nagios plugin object. Okay? It gives you access to the mech object, to the content, and to get and submit for. So you can use these methods are from 3Ws Mechanize, and these are methods too from 3Ws Mechanize, just to read them. And it automatically tracks the response time for you. So you say get 3wsgoogle.com, submit the form that's named blah 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 with these parameters, and when your plugin executes, automatically in the output you get a time. So the plugin is tracking time for you automatically. Doing some plugins for customers, I ran into a couple of surprises, and let's say that the 3Ws Mechanize helped me get around them. One thing I found was with gzip content, 3Ws Mechanize says that it accepts gzip content, and when you read the content, it's the gzip. So you get lots of trash. So luckily, the developers left in here a mech. You can pass an instance of a mech object, and the only thing I was worried about, and it's documented, is the auto check equal 0. So I looked on cpan. There's a 3Ws gzip, 3Ws Mechanize gzip module that makes 3Ws Mechanize not give you the trash. It unzips the content for you, and